When Shifting Gears first premiered on ABC, most people didn't expect much more than nostalgia. Another Tim Allen sitcom. Another round of dad jokes, garage banter, and conservative jabs wrapped in heartwarming family moments. After all, Allen had done this twice before, once as the iconic Tim Taylor in Home Improvement, and again as the all-American Mike Baxter in Last Man Standing. But Shifting Gears wasn't just another repeat. It felt familiar, sure. The blue-collar setting, the workshop humor, the loving but stubborn dad. Yet there was something more fragile about it. This time, the laughs were quieter, the edges sharper, and the man behind the wheel seemed a little lonelier. And that's where this story gets interesting. Because Shifting Gears isn't just Tim Allen doing his old routine. It's a meta-sitcom about time, loss, and the struggle to stay relevant, both as a character and as a man who's built an entire career out of representing a certain kind of American masculinity. Let's break down why Season 1 didn't click, how Season 2 fixes almost everything wrong with it, and why this might be the most personal and self-aware work of Tim Allen's sitcom legacy. In Shifting Gears, Allen plays Matt Parker, a widowed auto shop owner trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter, Riley, played by Kat Dennings, and the grandkids he's barely met. On paper, it's classic Allen territory, a man out of sync with the modern world, surrounded by people who challenge his worldview. But there's one crucial difference this time. Matt isn't surrounded by the comforting chaos of family or coworkers who understand him. He starts out isolated, angry, and stuck in grief. For decades, Allen's characters were softened by family. In Home Improvement, Tim Taylor's overconfidence and man's man humor were balanced by Jill's patience and the warmth of his 3 sons. In Last Man Standing, Mike Baxter had his wife Vanessa and 3 daughters to push against his stubbornness and make him evolve. But in Shifting Gears, Matt Parker doesn't have that buffer. His wife is gone, his daughter resents him, his grandkids are strangers. And that loneliness changes everything. What used to be endearing bluster in his earlier roles now reads as something darker. The defensive humor of a man who's out of touch and deeply afraid to face how much the world has moved on without him. The jokes that once landed as playful now feel like emotional armor. Season 1 leaned into this isolation maybe too much. It made the show feel like a shadow of Allen's earlier work. The familiar setting was there, but without the warmth that made those shows so lovable. Critics noticed. Many said Matt Parker felt like a discount Tim Taylor or a lonely Mike Baxter. But the real problem wasn't the performance. It was the emotional setup. Without someone to soften Matt, he came off like a relic. His humor was defensive, his worldview rigid, and the show's tone uneven. The writers tried to balance it with nostalgia, bringing in familiar faces like Nancy Travis in a guest role as a fellow widower, and using callbacks to Allen's earlier sitcom days. But nostalgia can only carry a show so far. Viewers wanted heart, not just a greatest hits compilation. And yet, within all that roughness, there were sparks of something deeper. Episode 4, where Matt and Riley finally confront their shared grief, hinted at what Shifting Gears could be, a show about healing, not just humor. It was raw, it was awkward, but it was real. For the first time, Allen's trademark defensiveness cracked open to show something more human underneath. That's the moment where Shifting Gears quietly shifted from being a sitcom about an old man to being a sitcom about aging itself. Fast forward to Season 2, and suddenly everything clicks. It's not that the show changes who Matt is. He's still gruff, still sarcastic, still stubborn, but it finally gives him a world that balances him instead of isolating him. Riley and Matt's relationship evolves into a partnership built on tension and care. The garage, once just a workplace, becomes a symbol of rebuilding, both for the business and their family. And most importantly, the show's tone learns how to laugh with its characters, not at them. The Season 2 premiere even pokes fun at itself in the best way possible. In one standout scene, Riley tries to convince her dad to like a woman named Eve by saying, "Think of her as a female Joe Rogan who smells like a dry rub." In Season 1, Matt would have rolled his eyes and dropped some grumbly joke about wokeness or modern culture. But instead, he leans in, smirks, and says, "That's my dream woman." It's a small moment, but a powerful one. It shows that the humor has evolved. The show isn't afraid to tease Tim Allen's man's man persona, but it does it with warmth, not mockery. It lets the character, and Allen himself, Be in on the joke. That's the secret sauce of Season 2. It's not just funnier, it's smarter. The writing understands that the best way to update an old-school comedy star isn't to make him preach or pander, it's to let him grow naturally, through relationships and self-awareness. Now here's the theory. Shifting Gears Season 2 isn't just about Matt Parker learning to reconnect with his family. It's about Tim Allen reconnecting with his audience. For years, Allen's sitcoms have represented a kind of comfort TV. Safe, familiar, middle-American humor with a sprinkle of rebellion. But times have changed. Audiences don't want heroes who complain about how things used to be. They want characters who wrestle with change, who feel the gap between generations and try, even imperfectly, to bridge it. That's exactly what Shifting Gears does in Season 2. It turns the show's own weaknesses, its nostalgia, its simplicity, its conservative tone, into tools for growth. Matt Parker isn't canceled or left behind. He learns, slowly, that the world doesn't owe him anything, but it also hasn't abandoned him. The punchlines aren't about difference anymore. They're about connection. That evolution mirrors Allen himself. After Last Man Standing ended, there was a lot of debate online about whether Allen's humor still fit in modern TV. Shifting Gears could have doubled down on the past, but instead, it chose to do something braver, to look inward. It uses the familiar structure of a sitcom to tell a quiet story about loss, humility, and relevance, not as buzzwords, but as lived experiences. Even the title, Shifting Gears, feels like a metaphor for Allen's own transition, from the loud, tool-loving dad of the 90s to a man learning how to move forward after life's hardest turns. Another clever detail is how Season 2 brings in nostalgia not as fan service but as therapy. Matt's reunion with his old Home Improvement co-stars happens not as a gimmicky cameo, but in the form of a widow support group. It's hilarious, yes, but it's also quietly sad. These men who once represented vitality and strength are now sharing grief over coffee in a church basement. It's one of the most poignant things Shifting Gears has ever done. It says, we're still here, we're older, we're slower, but we're still us. That's not just good writing, that's honesty. And that's what separates Shifting Gears from other sitcoms trying to chase the good old days. It doesn't pretend time hasn't passed. It lets the years show. It lets the pain breathe. That's why this show works better now than ever. Because instead of trying to recreate the past, it accepts it and builds something new on top. The beauty of Shifting Gears Season 2 is in its tone. It doesn't feel cynical. It's not a satire or a nostalgia trap. It's a show about learning how to laugh again when the world you knew is gone. And that's something uniquely Tim Allen. His comedy has always been about men trying and often failing to express emotion. But here, for the first time, failure isn't the punchline. Vulnerability is. In the way Matt bonds with Riley, in his hesitant steps toward love again, and in the moments where he lets his guard down, that's where the show shines. You can almost feel Allen himself working through something real. The fear of being outdated, the ache of missing old friends, and the hope that humor can still bring people together even when everything else changes. That's why Season 2 feels so different, because it finally gives its lead the thing he's always needed most: connection. If Home Improvement was about the joy of building things, and Last Man Standing was about holding your ground, then Shifting Gears is about learning to let go, to move forward, to adapt, to love through change. And that's what makes it not just another sitcom, but a reflection of life itself. The show doesn't reinvent television, but it doesn't have to. What it does is more subtle and more meaningful. It shows that even the most familiar stories can grow, and that even an old mechanic like Matt Parker, or Tim Allen himself, can still find new roads to travel. Shifting Gears Season 2 might not be the flashiest show on TV, but it's quietly doing something beautiful. It's teaching its audience, and maybe even its creator, that there's power in evolving with grace. Because at the end of the day, life doesn't stop just because the engine's old. You just shift gears and keep driving.